going on as well. Okay.
Thank you.
So I thought maybe we could start by each of you telling us a little bit about the projects. And then whatever else you would like to say. I did introduce both of your organizations.
Perfect. You're going to start just, I could see up your homelessness and you can say how you came in. Jen Montisano, I am the homeless liaison for Akron Public Schools. Everyone says there's no homeless people in Akron, but he proved that they are. So homeless liaison and homelessness in our public schools is a reality. Each school system per federal law is mandated to have a homeless liaison. Sometimes it is lumped with another position like director of food. Like the lunch lady is also a homeless liaison for some of our really teeny tiny small districts. Or somebody like me who I think we're number 5 out in the state of Ohio for size, population of students. I have an entire job dedicated to educating students who are homeless. And I have a team that works with me. So if you're all from Cleveland, Cleveland has Project Learn, which would be the similar organization, or excuse me, similar department to what we are right now. Since this screening, our numbers have tanked thanks to COVID, thanks to funding. But we do not feel that homelessness has been solved. In fact, I think it's way worse. So roll over to Ken.
To be clear, that's not because there are fewer kids.
No.
Situation.
We very much probably have an increased problem, but after COVID, I think last year our funding, so we get federal grant funding goes from the federal to the state to the local schools. And there was a 40% decrease in our federal funding allocations last year. That with me rolling, so I was the advocate. I was the crazy person running around the district meeting with students all the time. It's what I do really well. Shayna, who was running our program for 10 years, she retired. She had enough of homeless, and I understand that it's exhausting work, and moved into her counseling skills. So between the 40% reduction of funding and a turnover, we identified we're trending downward in our identification. With our reduced funding, we had to drop 5 staff members, 5 full-time staff people. So we only have the capacity to identify so many students, unfortunately. We have 3 people on intakes all day long that are identifying, working with schools, working with families to assess the housing. I'm sorry, yes. And you know what, while I'm up here, give me a microphone, I'll talk forever. Housing instability for McKinney-Vento is lack of a regular, adequate nighttime residence. So that is our standard. So that could be, as our probably 85% of our students are doubled up with another family. I have housing, I lose my housing because of whatever, and I move in with someone else. That is that lack of adequate nighttime residence. We have a lot of families in our community that are in hotels right now. So mom loses housing and bounces to a hotel and is essentially paying, it's shocking the amount of money people are paying to sustain in really, really poor condition hotels. But they allow for a daily rate. So mom has a job where she's getting paid daily, and then she'll do that daily rate. And then we have, I think we're up to 11 shelters in Akron now. And there was a study done over the summer that says we're still 384 beds short every night. We will be short more beds come winter. Some people are comfortable sleeping outside. For the most part, we don't have many students sleeping outside. We try to minimize that or get them as much attention as possible to get them into shelter if the family is willing to go to shelter. And then our 4th category is the unaccompanied youth. Unaccompanied youth still meet that no adequate nighttime residence, but now take away parent or guardian. So you have a kid who maybe got kicked out, or maybe mom passed away, or mom, I have one right now, mom is in prison, kids got put to someone else, and it becomes even more unstable than all of the first three categories. Absolutely. And so part of my pivot, so when I took on Project Rise last school year, and then our funding tank, so I took on Project Rise. We had so much money, we were actually paying a part of a guy at Legal Aid. We were paying a halftime person at United Way. Like, we were rolling in the dough. It was, now my job has pivoted where I am running around Akron asking for money, trying to bring our students to conversations for the city, and trying to find as many resources for our families as possible. Right now, part of legislation, I believe, is we're lumped with the education at the federal level. So there is concern and talk that they're going to lump us in with the funding for other education. So they can, rather than earmark it like we are now, they can lump all of the funding in for education and put it to the state, and then the state puts it to the to the local. If they don't independently define the law or the mandate, the funding doesn't have to come directly to us. So in addition to trying to identify our students and spreading the great news of Project Rise all over Akron, I'm also trying to work on a plan C. What happens if we don't get mandated? What happens if we don't have the funding? Like, what's going to happen to our kiddos? It's fine. Just kidding. I'm told I have good soft skills, so that's what I'm using. I'm leaning on my soft skills. I'm running around everywhere.
Yeah, just a quick word about my involvement here. At this point, when we made this, I had cobbled together an existence as a journalist. I got a small arts grant to make a documentary, and we found out about this issue while making another documentary on this in Akron. And we quickly realized that it was going to be too big to put into the other document. And so we wrote a grant proposal, Department of Arts and Culture accepted it, gave us a small amount of funding to make the film. I made the film. I think we had enough money to pay a sound guy, a camera guy. I had to call it. But yeah, that was our involvement. We just reached out. We heard Project Rise was an organization. They were gracious enough to give us the lay of the land, and we were learning on our feet as we did it. It's a huge issue, and it's only getting bigger. It sounds like, but just the sheer fact that I could go in any room and ask the room, have you heard of this? If any hands go. So that was the reason for us to work. So I hope it. We wanted it to have a bigger screening, but we have made the mistake of making this in 2019 and trying to screen it in April of 2020, and that screening got canceled, as you can imagine.
Everything else.
Yeah, and so this film didn't get as much of a release in Akron as we wanted it to, but it's screened in Las Vegas, it's screened in several cities around the country, so we're hoping that it can generate a discussion and screen films. Great.
So talking numbers real quick, last year Project Rise identified 1,450 students, so actual APS students. I think we have about 1,900 when we factor in siblings who don't go to APS schools. So that could be little people, dropouts, or students who have gone to other schools but are still identified as part of the problem or part of the family. This school year, I think we hit 800 today, students identified so far. Every year on July 1, homelessness is solved. Our rolls go to 0. So it's like our favorite day that no one ever works. So starting on July 1, all of our homeless status is wiped away and we start over. And I do appreciate that. It forces us to communicate with all of those families and assess their situation. Where are you living? What's improved? Hey, I heard you got into permanent housing over the summer. How can we help with that transition? Because it's really expensive to be poor and homeless, and it's really expensive to transition into new housing. We've gotten some grants. Right now, JR is a Akron foundation, and they did a huge grant for us last year to do beds for families, for students who are transitioning out of homelessness, something I'm very proud of. So I think that has paid for about 350 beds for kids as they transition out of homelessness, with bedding, with a Walmart textile gift card to make sure every kid gets to pick out their own bedding. So something that is we're kind of proud about, obviously.
Do you partner with any public libraries to provide after-school care or, the homework help, those kind of things?
So we don't, our Akron public libraries are wonderful. We partner with them on lots of opportunities, especially for summer programming, but unfortunately not for after-school care. We will work with the schools because there's 50, I think we've got 54 schools in Akron. So we will work with the schools on what daycares can provide transportation or whatever resources that they offer. But our library are great resources for our kiddos for the summertime.
Questions?
So I Promise is an Akron public school.
Repeat for the online.
Oh, okay. And she said, are the 54 schools, and I might be off one or two, I don't remember. Are the 54 schools, are they just Akron Public? So yes, that is just our Akron Public Schools. And I Promise is one of our Akron Public Schools. They're not a charter. In addition to these, the Akron Public Schools, we do have a large charter group in Akron. They are required, the charter schools are required to do their own assessment of homelessness unless we're assessing the rest of the family based on them having APS students. So APS is required to transport those charter kids under certain circumstances, but the charter school is responsible for reaching out to our transportation department directly.
Drew?
Akron has a sizable refugee resettlement population. Are you seeing lots of those kids come to you, or are they being served by others?
Okay, refugee resettlement population question, and yes, we are seeing a lot of refugee immigrant families, not just refugee, but also undocumented families coming in, families that checked in through ICE, or students who checked in through ICE, and having a whole different set of, or navigating a whole different set of circumstances with those students. We have families who are self-deporting. This has been a really big one for us. Self-deporting, but leaving the kids here, which they become unaccompanied. So I have 2 high school kiddos. I'll give an example. 2 high school kiddos. Mom and dad came here with, I think, 3 kids. They took the youngest one back with them, but they've been here for 20 years. They said, if we get picked up, we're losing 20 years of life. So they filled up U-Hauls or whatever they did, and they left their 2 high school students here. They are both birth certificated, Social Security number kiddos. They were born here. They have rights to here. But the issues that they're having to face are really, really difficult. They were left with a cousin. The cousin was like 20. These kids are like 18 and 17. Cousin who's 20 put them out. So it has been a very unique set of circumstances. And we are seeing that more.
Other questions?
Are you able to track any benefit to the kids that they have the resource of the organization? Are they better able to sort of thrive academically because they have some kind of support system?
Okay, the question was, are we able to put data behind our identification? We're working on it. So last year, we're changing software programs. So tracking in our eSchool, so our student information system, we're not able to do that. So we went from one system to another, but we're trying to actually pinpoint date of identification to attendance, and we're not there yet. But we are trying. I would say overall, our homeless families have the worst attendance rates reduced graduation rates, lowest test scores, all things negative. I think when I pull the numbers with me, out of the 800 students identified, I think we already have 200 plus that are at severe chronic attendance. So that means they've already missed 80% of the registered school days. Our hope is that once we identify that we would be able to throw resources behind them to remove those barriers to education. But our data is, we're struggling with the identification date and we're getting charged with the truancy or the attendance before the identification date. So we're working with our data system to target when they're identified and then look at the identified to the, to track the upward trends. Yes. I have infiltrated myself into our truancy juvenile court, domestic relations courts, who are both tasked with different responsibilities with our unaccompanied youth or homeschool students.
They must be very vulnerable.
Very vulnerable. And I think a lot of our unaccompanied youth, she asked about vulnerability for our unaccompanied youth. And I think that some of our students are doing things to get their needs met that they're not comfortable saying. I pride myself in being able to ask any person any single question, no matter how impersonal or personal or inappropriate it is. And I always try to assess for, is someone making you do something that you're not comfortable with? And usually a kid's not going to tell you, but their eyes do not lie. Yep. Yep.
Because the funding cuts and staffing cuts, how you report it?
How underreported? So I believe at our height before COVID, because of funding cuts, asking how underreported our numbers are. So I would say my belief is about 50%. If we're trending at 1,500, I think we should be closer to 3,000 students. The nature of housing in Akron right now. So Akron has been hit by groups from out of state buying up real estate and driving rental prices way high. 2-bedroom, very poor condition apartment or something that is attached to the back of the house that's called an apartment. That rent is about $1,200 a month. That is like market rent. That is driving families out. They're not able to pay that. I would say most of our moms, and I say moms because we are probably 95% mom-based, single mom-based. I don't have any data to support this, but I would say at least 70% of our moms are holding down jobs, if not 2 jobs. So I would say we should be closer to 3,000 students identified, whereas right now last year we're at 1,450. I think closer to 2,000 with our non-APS students. When we had academic advocates, so we have 2.5 academic advocates, we had 5 before. When you're running around school buildings all day, solving homeless issues in school for our unaccompanied youth, we're much more visible. Now we have to remind our teaching staff, our counselors, our principals that we're here. And if you hear something, let us know so that we can assess. Yes.
As manager of EPS for Project Rise, what's the nature of extending your interaction with some services? You have to pick up the phone every time.
Yep, I'll repeat the question. So the asking what our responsibility is as mandated reporters to children's services. So homelessness does not mandate a children's service referral. I'm going to give 2 different examples of unique situations that came. Yesterday, we have a mom, 2 dogs, a boyfriend, 2 middle school girls living in a tent. My coworker, who is part of she gets the HMIS, so the Homeland Information Management System, she has a login for that. Mom is not doing her due diligence on checking in for the shelter. So that would be her shelter entry point. We have that, and I think Cleveland does too. You have your single point of contact shelter entry. Mom has not been checking in, and then my coworker kind of went on a deep dive with mom yesterday. And I don't want to say she was being aggressive, but she was aggressively asking her questions, trying to assess where she stood on entering shelter. And mom said, I won't go to shelter if my boyfriend can't go. So prioritizing boyfriend over her own kids. And then she said, I won't go if the dogs can't go. So won't leave the dogs. So we know that homelessness, your two factors for homelessness, we're going to be homeless as a child. That is the biggest indicator for being homeless as an adult, and a lack of high school. And then we also know that there's going to be oftentimes mental health or substance abuse issues linked to that situation. So for that mom, we called yesterday. We have a mom who we feel then becomes neglect, right? I understand if you are choosing to stay outside, it's cold now. And we can only do so much, but we called Children's Services yesterday, and then we called the school and reported that we called Children's Services, and I do believe they were calling us. Another situation where we called Children's Services was it was a mom who stabbed somebody getting off the bus. This is not normal for her, right? She went crazy and box cut someone. She was new to the area, and the students were put with, she had 5 little ones all in grade school. So these kids ended up with somebody who, talking to this lady, again, I'm really good on asking really personal questions that are inappropriate. This caretaker, so we had these kids, mom goes to jail. We identified them as unaccompanied youth. They are staying with a lady that has known these kids for a week. She met mom walking on the path, and she said she bummed a cigarette. That to me was reportable because mom doesn't know her. I'm going to trust mom's, like my goal is to trust mom's judgment, but I can't trust mom's judgment if the person who has the kids has known her for a week, and the reason why they know each other is because they were walking on a path and she bummed a cigarette. So that to me was another Children's Service referral. Our standard is not calling Children's Services. Abuse and neglect is what we look at. Yep.
I don't know the condition of the shelters are available. Because how long is the wait? And then is part of the reason they don't want to go to shelter. I mean, I hear about boyfriend has to go, and kids go, or dogs have to go, and so forth. But what are the conditions of those shelters?
So the question is about conditions of their shelters. Most of our shelters are pretty welcome. I would have to say that there is some staff turnover, but our staff and shelter staff are helping families transition into and out of shelter. Shelter for our community is going to be the fastest way to get into permanent housing that's subsidized. For the most part, though, I think our shelters are probably not the ideal situation where somebody wants to be, but I don't get a lot of complaints that there is sinister things happening, if that makes sense. We have, and it really is, I think there's some couple one-off situations. I'll reference, someone said something about I Promise. I Promise has their transitional living and their shelter, and they're amazing. Like Mama S, so Shannon at I Promise Village, she is an amazing person. She is setting families up for some wonderful success. I wish we could clone her, and I talk to her about it all the time. She needs to get her pathways on paper so we can start replicating them. Battered Women's or Hope and Healing. their turnover is a little bit worse. So I think in young, so you've got like a 21-year-old college graduate trying to talk to mom about how not to be homeless. That's really tough. They don't have much life experience to reference. So I have to say that our families are getting fed there. They're safe there. A couple of the difficult situations that we experience is if a mom's working and let's say a kid has transportation, gets off the bus, even if it's an appropriate age for a kid to stay by themselves, they can't stay by themselves at the shelter. So we're working on that, trying to figure out some solutions for that. So, but I would say for the most part, we're getting positive feedback.
One final question from the audience? Anything you guys would like to wrap up with?
I just want to say, I mean, like this, if we're gonna pretend in this country that pulling yourself up is the way out of poverty and that this issue is this prevalent, that's a direct contradiction. This problem cannot exist in this country and it be a meritocracy at the same time. We are going to pretend that seizing opportunities is the way out of situations like this. We can't prevent these kids from getting those opportunities in the first place. So I'm just grateful to people.
No, it's gonna make me cry.
And I'm gonna put in a final plug for monetary donations for Project Rise. Hope you can help. Thank you. Thank our speakers as well.